Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
Yes, I just realized Kamala Harris doesn't know history. Immediately, she sent this out. Ron Desantist replied her by saying this.
First video.
Do not, for the love of God, tell kids that slavery was beneficial, because I can guarantee you it most certainly was not. Thank you.
Education and civil rights advocates are slamming new Black history teaching standards in Florida. Under the new rules, middle school teachers must now include lessons, quote, how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
It's inaccurate, it's ahistorical. Critics are calling this a big step backwards and saying it's a disservice to Florida students because they're not going to learn the full truth and the full accurate truth of American history.
This is insanity on top of insanity. Parents, advocates of all different backgrounds proclaimed this is wrong. Do not do it. None of them listen. Why? Because they are under the direction of a madman named Governor Ron Desantist. And they themselves are feckless leaders in positions of authority. Here it is.
And I am very concerned by these standards, especially some of the notion that, enslaved people benefited from being enslaved is an accurate and a scary standard for us to establish in our educational curriculum.
The proposed changes specifically for elementary and middle school students leave out the last 150 years of Black history. Where Black history is taught provides a simplified and sterilized version of history.
The new standards suggest that violence by Black residents in defense of their lives and homes as they were surrounded by armed mobs and flames, and as they were forced to flee their homes or be shot or burned, are to be included as a seemingly equal part of the standard. This is egregious if you understand what happened to the Black residents in Ocoee in 1920.
First of all, I want to say any kind of standards that indicate that slavery benefited Black people is such an insult. My husband is Black. My daughter is Black. And the thought that slavery benefited them, how could that be taught? The fact that the pushback to Reconstruction benefited them, the fact that Jim Crow benefited them. How can we teach that to students? How can someone look at a child with a straight face and say that slavery benefited Black people?
All right, members, we have the motion on the table to approve the two rules. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Show the amendment approved. Members, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back.
This is adverse to the sentiment of the majority of Americans. They do not agree with this. The majority of white America does not agree with this curriculum adoption. Obviously, Black Americans do not agree. But let's count the hypocrisy in all of this. As I said from day one, this is the plan of Governor Desantist to eliminate diversity, to eliminate inclusion. He is literally making conversations at the kitchen table of racists.
Ron DeSantis sent this out on Twitter. Democrats like Kamala Harris have lied about Florida educational standard to cover for their agenda of indoctrinating students and pushing topics onto children. Florida stand in their way, and we will continue to expose their agenda and their lies. The Harris-Biden administration is obsessed with Florida, yet they ignore the chaos at the border, crime-infested city, economic malaise, and their military recruitment crisis. Maybe if Biden's granddaughter moved to Florida, he would actually visit her. That is what is going on. I saw this, and it's training. Kamala Harris actually doesn't know history.
What do you have anything on this before I move on to China?
I don't see what one has to do with the other, but go on. I took up a lot of time with Fox.
Oh, it's fine. We have time.
I don't really see what one has to do with the other, especially and using the Civil War to talk about Black Americans. That war was not fought for Black people to have guns. That's not
That war was fought for black people to have freedoms in this country.
Yeah.
Actually, that's why the Civil War was fought.
Okay.
And the sad
but that
part
wasn't
about it.
fought for black people to have guns. I think.
Actually, you know, funny fact is, black people did not get to enjoy the other freedoms until their Second Amendment rights were secured. And I think that that's one of the lessons that we
still
learned.
aren't allowed to enjoy the freedoms.
I disagree with you on that, Don. I disagree with you. And I think you're doing a disservice to our country by failing to recognize the fact that we have equality before the law.
And you live in this country, then you can disagree with me. But we're not. You mentioned in here that we have three different shades
Don, I
of
think we have to be
melanin
able to
here.
talk about these issues in the open regardless of the color of our skin. Black Americans today, to say that, compare that to 1865 and 1964,
I think for you to compare it to
absolutely
1865 and
have equal rights
1964
in this
is
country.
actually, I think it's insulting.
Yes, the vice president is pinning Florida Black History curriculum. When I saw this video on Twitter, immediately community note put up recently, fact check what she said. This proof how she lied. There is the insane guy by name, I think he's an influencer to them, Harry, high Republican. Did this slave personally benefit from slavery like Ron Desantist and others want you to believe? It even grows how Republicans try to whitewash and erase our history. Somebody replied this guy immediately, took him to school to educate him. Yeah, I will take this little boy to school. The Republican Party was formed in 1854 by President Lincoln to exclusively combat slavery. To give you an idea how stupid you sound, famous dope man was a spy for the Union Army. Now let's see how things stack up as far as amendment. 13th Amendment abolished slavery, supported by 100% Republicans and 23% Democrat. 15th Amendment, right to vote for all, supported by 100% Republican and 0 of Democrat. 14th Amendment, citizenship for freed slaves, supported by 94% of Republican and 0% of Democrat. When you look at this, you will clearly see the difference. To abolish slavery, Republicans play a vital role, in this. That is not all. When you look at the second point, 15th Amendment, right to vote for all, supported by 100 Republicans, 0 for Democrat. But when you look at what is going on now, you realize they will tell you the obvious. Like they are the one advocating this. Republicans are refusing that these people should not vote. Meanwhile, when you go back into history, did not support this because at that time, going down to the 14th Amendment, citizenship for freed slaves, supported by 94% of Republicans. Democrats didn't agree to this. So you will see what is happening. Kid like this doesn't even know what is going on.
Florida's racist again. Here's the new hoax. They say Florida schools are teaching students that slavery was good for blacks.
Free housing, permanent employment, and all-you-can-eat cornbread. Board of Education of Florida wants you to see that job description and think, maybe slavery wasn't so bad.
If you're going to say there were benefits to slavery, then you're going to say there were benefits to women being property and subject to abuse and subject to home enslavement.
What I realize from what Kamala Harris is doing here, she doesn't like kids to know that slaves developed skills that benefited them.